For many gamers, including myself, Battlefield holds a special place in our hearts. It represented a vision of what gaming would look like in the future. A groundbreaking experience that pushed the boundaries of large-scale warfare in ways no other series really had done. With its vast maps, dynamic destruction, vehicles, and squad-based gameplay emphasizing communication and teamwork, Battlefield carved out a unique niche in the gaming world. Titles like Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, and even Battlefield 1 exemplified these core pillars and really created some memorable moments. Then came Battlefield 5, a game that many believe tried to push a DEI agenda as much as it aimed to capture the gritty, surreal realities of World War II. And if that wasn't enough, Battlefield 2042 followed. A title that will likely go down as the worst mainline entry in the series. It launched with no sense of direction, riddled with bugs, a poorly designed UI, no scoreboard or voice chat, and completely missed the expectations of the franchise's fan base. Looking back, it's been almost a decade since we've truly had a Battlefield experience that resonated with the audience. And now we're looking ahead to the new Battlefield title. The pressure is immense, and DICE must learn from their mistakes, listen to feedback, and deliver a game that redefines what Battlefield can be. In many ways, this is the most important title DICE has developed since the company's inception. So let's start with 2042, as it's probably the most freshest and frustrating memory of a Battlefield fan. Sure, DICE has cleaned up bugs, added features, and introduced new content since launch. But even in its final state, 2042 doesn't come close to any other game in the series. To move forward, DICE must work backwards and examine where it all went wrong with this title. And the truth is, it was almost everything. Visually, 2042 was a disappointment. How does Battlefield 3, a game released in 2011, still look so much better over a decade later? While Battlefield 5 had its flaws, its movement system was one of the best in the series, featuring dynamic sprints, vaulting, and rolling after falls. In stark contrast, 2042 stripped away that fluidity, leaving movement feeling clunky and uninspired. The user interface was another mess, making basic tasks feel tedious. Progression felt shallow and uninspired. And as I mentioned earlier, you launched a Battlefield title without voice chat. Really? And then to top it all off, the decision to initially remove the iconic class system further alienated the fan base, though DICE eventually reinstated it. And then there were the maps. Sprawling but lifeless, with vast empty spaces and little detail or strategy. At its core, 2042 was just not a good game, and no amount of updates could have changed that. Even EA and DICE seemed to realize this, as the title lacked a clear direction from the start. But 2042 isn't the only challenge that the devs at DICE now face. A new challenger approaches in Delta Force. While some loyalists dismiss Delta Force as a copycat, the game offers features reminiscent of classic Battlefield titles. Minimal bugs at launch, a fair amount of content, deep progression, robust weapon customization, and a class system with plenty of characters. Most importantly, it just brings back that fun and excitement you got when you played Battlefield back in the day. It was an open sandbox that allows you to do anything, essentially. Adding to its appeal, Delta Force is free to play. This creates a tough choice. Spend $70 on the next Battlefield game or enjoy a comparable experience for free. While hardcore fans will most likely buy the next Battlefield on release, the real challenge for DICE will be retaining the players in the long run. From a customer's perspective, this competition is a net positive. Delta Force puts pressure on DICE to deliver a great game and vice versa, ensuring that both franchises must innovate to satisfy and retain their audiences. As gamers, we should embrace this rivalry. It's good for the industry and ultimately results in better games for everyone. So what's really at stake for DICE and the Battlefield franchise? In short term, it's about losing more fans, but honestly, 2042 already caused a massive exodus. Trust in the brand is at an all-time low, and expectations are shaky at best. The consequences are far more deeper for DICE. If the next Battlefield fails, we could see a split from EA, or even worse, we could see a studio be shut down. The current climate in the gaming industry is unforgiving. 3 strikes and you're out. This title isn't just a game, it's a lifeline. The biggest concern, however, lies within DICE itself. These are not the same developers that created Bad Company, Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1. Those devs have left, they've gone to work at other studios, or they've created their own. The real challenge now is whether the current team can live up to the legacy DICE has built over the years. Here's the harsh reality. Customers just don't care about these internal changes. They see the name DICE and Battlefield, and with that comes high expectations. This isn't unique to DICE. You see it with Blizzard, Ubisoft, Rocksteady Games, and other major studios. Developers move on, but the studio name remains, and it's the name that fans hold accountable. This means delivering a game that doesn't just capture the essence of what Battlefield used to be, but also sets the standard for what the franchise should look like moving forward. The pressure to succeed extends beyond launch. The game must continue to meet expectations through its seasonal content cycles and beyond. If the next title doesn't rise to the occasion, I'm afraid we could be looking at the end of DICE as we know it. Am I hopeful after hearing the news that the new Battlefield will be set in the modern era like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4? Yes and no. On one hand, the modern era opens up a wealth of creative opportunities. Unlike World War I or World War II settings, which come with inherent limitations, the modern era strikes the perfect balance between realism, familiarity, and fun. The return of classic features like the removal of specialists and the reinstatement of the class system is another encouraging sign. Perhaps the best news is that the game will focus on 64-player modes instead of the overcrowded 128-player chaos we saw in Battlefield 2042. This is definitely a step in the right direction. I'm glad to hear that they're returning to their roots, but let's be clear here. These are the minimum requirements, right? Like, you guys aren't getting an applause because you guys are making the right decisions. The real challenge for DICE is going to be how to differentiate the game from Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Those titles are iconic for a reason, but simply creating a modern Battlefield with new maps, modes, and better graphics just won't cut it. This game needs to feel like a genuine evolution of the franchise, a step forward, not just a retracement of old successes. After all, those games came out over a decade ago. The big question is, what does that next step look like? Ultimately, the situation feels like a win-win for us customers. The recent success of Delta Force and the disaster of 2042 means that DICE and EA have every reason to push themselves harder. And if the new Battlefield fails to deliver, players will simply turn to Delta Force or other competitors. On the flip side, Delta Force will also need to stay sharp, innovating and improving as we get closer to the launch of the new Battlefield. The competition between these two titles is a good thing, and ensures that both are motivated to deliver quality experiences for their players. In the end, the biggest winners are us, the gamers. What do you think Battlefield needs to avoid some of the same mistakes 2042 had, but also differentiate from older titles like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and peace.